And soon as I got to that gentleman, he took off running to catch the bus. And he just didn't see me. And he actually ran into the front left quarter panel of my truck and spun him around, and his head hit the rearview mirror, the passenger, the we call it the side mirror. And it spun him around again, and he hit the left rear quarter panel and fell face down in the street. It was surreal. I didn't even realize what had happened. I mean, it happened so quickly, and I was literally in shock. It was like slow motion. And I pulled over to the side of the road, and I was trying to get my bearings, and I was like, what just happened? Like, I literally didn't know what happened, and I was scared to turn around. So I sat there in the car for a moment, and I had to. And so I turned around and looked, and there's a gentleman face down in the street, and he's motionless.
Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
All right, so honey, here we are with Aaron Walker, the Aaron Walker, or Big A, as it shows on the screen.
I know, I'm so excited.
And Aaron comes from a trusted friend, Mike Kim, who's part of your mastermind group, Aaron, and I happen to be in Mike's mastermind group. So trusted friends. So we know we're going to have a great conversation. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, Robert and Kay. It's really a delight to be here today. So I'm honored to be your guest. Thank you.
Yeah, and looking at your bio and information I've seen about you, obviously very successful from an entrepreneurial standpoint. You started and sold multiple companies, including 2 Fortune 500 companies. So, especially at a young age, even before you're 20, you're starting your entrepreneurial journey. But tell us what that was like when you sold your first company. You
I don't know.
That first company.
That was a long time ago, Robert. I got to think back. So let me rewind a little bit there, just a little bit. But, I grew up here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here my entire life, and we came from a pretty poor family. My mom and dad were great people, but I wanted to make a little bit more of myself, and so I really poured myself into the entrepreneurial space. When I was 18, I started my first company, and when I was 27, a Fortune 500 approached me and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So we won't go through that journey, but it was really nice for about 18 months. And I started gaining weight, gained 50 pounds in 18 months. And
oh, boy. I
was getting in the bed in the middle of the day at the end of 18 months. And my wife woke me up one day and she said, "Hey, this is not what I signed up for." And I'm like, I'm bored out of my mind. And she said, "Well, go back, do something else, start another company." And I said, I'll go back to where I started when I was a kid. And I did, and ended up forming a partnership, buying into that company. And we spent the next probably 10 years quadrupling that business. I had the resources at that time in order to put the capital in that was needed to grow the business. And everything was really good. I really kind of had the American dream. We had 2 beautiful daughters at the time, and Robin and I are about to celebrate 44 years of marriage. And so we got married.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We got married 2 weeks out of high school. And so, I was like, hey, we may as well raise each other, and so we did. And so, but I want to take you on a little different path besides the success. I want to talk about something that's much more important to me, and that's significance. Yeah. And I want to take you back to 2001, now 22, 23 years ago. And we went to our church. There were 5 men that went to our church every Wednesday morning, and we would pray for the church and pray for our families and literally get on our face before the Lord with our pastor. So there were 5 or 6 of us that met every Wednesday morning. We did that for years, and it was just a really good time for me. And this was no different than any other day, but I got in the car and I left, and I was headed to the office. I was 40 years old at the time. No comments about my age now, so we'll save those.
I'm doing the math right now. 2001, 40 years old.
Yeah. I'll be 63 in March, so you don't have to do the math.
60 years young.
And so I told Robin that I was going to go ahead and head to the office, and I did. It was about 7:30 in the morning, and there's a road called Gallatin Pike that runs right through the middle of Nashville in Madison, where I lived. It's just a little suburb of Nashville, about 11 miles north of Nashville. And I had a retail establishment on that road, and I got to a place called Trade Winds. It was a little store, and there was a gentleman crossing the street ahead of me, and I saw him. It was a 4-lane highway, had a median in the center of the road, a turning lane. And this gentleman ran across the oncoming traffic and got to the median and kind of paused. And I was driving a brand new 2001 Lincoln Navigator, candy apple red. I just bought it. It was a beautiful car, huge car. I'd always wanted that. It was just a beautiful car, and I was really enjoying it. Doing 45, 50 miles an hour, I guess. And when I saw this gentleman stop in the middle of the road, he just paused for a moment, and his shoulders went limp, and he was waiting to cross the road once I passed to catch a bus. There was a bus parked on the side of the road, a city bus. And so I sped back up. All this happened in like 5 seconds. I mean, you know how it is when you're driving. And so I sped back up, and I was probably doing 50, 55 miles an hour. And soon as I got to that gentleman, he took off running to catch the bus. And he just didn't see me. And he actually ran into the front left quarter panel of my truck and spun him around, and his head hit the rearview mirror, the passenger, the what do you call it, the side mirror. And it spun him around again, and he hit the left rear quarter panel and fell face down in the street. And it was surreal. I didn't even realize what had happened. I mean, it happened so quickly, and I was literally in shock. It was like slow motion. And I pulled over to the side of the road, and I was trying to get my bearings, and I was like, what just happened? Like, I literally didn't know what happened, and I was scared to turn around. So I sat there in the car for a moment, and I had to. And so I turned around and looked, and there's a gentleman face down in the street, and he's motionless. So I grabbed my cell phone, and I tried to dial 911, and Robert, I couldn't. My hand was shaking so hard that I could not dial 911. And so I put my palms together, stabilized my hand enough. I dialed 911, and within a minute, there were sirens coming from everywhere. There were police cars and ambulances. And I got out of the car, and there were cars stopped everywhere. It was a 4-lane highway, so both sides of the traffic had stopped, and people were out, and they were around this gentleman. And I went over, and the police got there, and they said, who was driving this car? And I told them I was, and they said, come back with me. So I went back, and they put me in the back seat of the patrol car, and they said, you need to stay here until we figure out what's going on. So the ambulance got there. This guy was still motionless, and obviously I was torn all to pieces. I just couldn't believe that 5 minutes earlier, I just left church, and now I'm sitting in the back of a patrol car, and there's a pedestrian face down on the street. They loaded him on the gurney, and the policeman went around and talked to everybody that was there and asked them what happened. I had no idea what he was doing, and I had no idea what they said, but he came back, and he got in the patrol car, asked for my driver's license, had to get my insurance card, gave it to him, and I said, is that guy okay? And they said, well, he's alive, but he's motionless, and they're carrying him to Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville to the trauma unit. So about an hour went by. They blocked off the street. They set up those cones. Nobody could move. No cars could be moved. They took pictures of all the street, took pictures of everything. And finally, he let me go, and I gave him my name and number, and I said, would somebody call me and let me know his condition? And they said, as soon as they get stabilized, they'll call you. So I went to the office, and I was so upset I couldn't work, so I went home. My wife was with my 2 daughters, and they were in Florida on a mission trip. And so I called my wife, told her what had happened, called my pastor, called some buddies of mine, told them what happened. They all came to me. And my wife got home the next day, and Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, the phone rang. And I didn't recognize the number, obviously, but it said Vanderbilt. And so I answered the phone, and they said, is this Mr. Walker? And I said, yes. And they said, Mr. Walker, I was told to call you, give you the condition of a gentleman. His name was Enrique. And I said, yes. And they said, I'm sorry to tell you he didn't make it. And I'm like, this is so surreal. Like, wow. You're not really serious. And they said, unfortunately, we are serious, and he didn't make it. So I started doing a little research, and I found out who he was, and he happened to be best friends with my personal physician.
Really?
And this gentleman originally was from the Philippines. He was 77 years old. His name was Enrique. And Enrique couldn't see good, and he was warned perpetually, do not travel alone. And he just didn't see me. So I called my physician and talked to him. He called the family and said, listen, these are good people. They've been my patients for 30 years. I've known him forever. And he said, you can call if you want to, but I don't think his wife is going to be able to talk to you. I called my legal counsel, and they said, whatever you do, don't call the family. And so I thought about that and prayed about that, and I said, I have to call the family. And so I called, and his daughter answered the phone. I identified myself. I told her what had happened, and she said, Mr. Walker, thank you for calling. My mom's not able to talk to you, but we really appreciate you taking ownership of this and calling to pay your condolences. And she said, you don't have to worry. There's no legal ramifications going to come of this. My dad was warned all the time not to travel alone, and he did. And I'm terribly sorry that he's not here, but I understand your position. And so I want to fast forward a little bit, but then I want to come back to the story. So fast forward to 2006, 5 years later, my dad gets diagnosed with lung cancer. He'd smoked at an early age. He hadn't smoked for 18 years, but he was diagnosed with lung cancer. He was at Skyline Hospital here in Nashville, and I went with him and sat in the ICU for the last 2 weeks of his life. And about a week into ICU, I told my mom I was going to go get lunch, and I'd be back in a little while. So I left to get lunch, and I came back in about an hour, and my mom was acting really weird, and I couldn't understand why. And I said, what's the matter? She said, nothing. And I said, no, I need to know. What did they tell you some more information on Dad? And she said, no, they didn't. I said, well, what is wrong? And the walls in an ICU are glass. You can see out. And she pointed out, and she said, you see that little girl out there? And she pointed, and that was my dad's nurse. And I said, yeah, sure. She said she was in here a few minutes ago, and she was telling us about her dad that was killed in an automobile accident in 2001.
No.
I'd never met the girl. Yeah. I get chills every time I tell it. The irony of the girl that took care of my dad the last week of his life was the girl that I had run over her dad in the same community. And I said, did you tell her who I was? And she said, no. She said, I felt that would embarrass her, and I didn't want her to know. But we never know how things come around. We never know the way we treat people. We never know. And so, yeah, that was a bit of irony in that. But I want to go back just for a minute. I sold the business after the accident. I couldn't carry on. I just said, I can't continue to work. I've been chasing money since I was 18 years old. I was 40 years old. God had really blessed us. We had a beautiful home. We ended up having a couple of vacation spots and all the tangible toys and all those kind of things. But what dawned on me during this period of time, I took 5 years off. I didn't work for 5 years. I took a sabbatical. God really impressed upon me that I had had great success financially, but no significance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had lived my life for us, looking inward, to amass tangible possessions that honestly one day is going to decay. The moth is going to eat and destroy, is what the word says. Right. And I hadn't made an impact in the lives of other people. So upon understanding that circumstance, I told the Lord, if He'd give me another chance, I'll serve other men, I'll reach out, I'll do the things that I need to do to help them have a level of success and significance. So that's what we've spent doing the past 20 years.
Wow, Aaron, I got questions, but I'm trying to digest it all. I mean, I just can't imagine, going through all that, and then coming back full circle where the person that you ran over. I mean, his daughter's taking care of your dad. I mean, that's just that's just a whole thing, isn't it? So, I mean, how did you? I mean, obviously that's. You're sharing. I mean, that's kind of a transitional moment or period of time where you went from, okay, going after business and making money to now it's like, okay, what am I really here for?
Mm-hmm.
And
what's important?
And also valuing relationships, right? It's basically at the end of the day, it's all valuing relationships. So how did you get through that period? I lost my first wife at 35. She died in a car accident, and there's definitely getting through that is a thing, and you can't do it alone.
Sure.
So how did you process through all that?
Yeah. Let me go back on something you just said a few minutes ago that I want to touch on before I answer that question. I don't want to minimize success. And I can't stand it when wealthy people go, money doesn't matter. And I'm like, that's not true. But money does matter. Money's important. And we need to create recurring revenue. We need to have savings. We need to reduce debt. We need to get ourselves in a position to where our family's not struggling. I want people to have aspirations. I want them to have goals. I want them to achieve. I want them to have, I have a nice boat, a nice home, a nice car. We take nice trips. We enjoy doing those things. But I also give away money. I enjoy giving away money, helping other people. Now, by some people's standards, I may be doing okay. Other people's standards, I don't have anything. There's not a comparison, right? And we can't get caught in that trap of comparison. And so don't do that. One of the messages for today, don't get caught up in comparison. But I don't want to negate the fact that making money is important. And so it is important. But don't let it be your God. Don't let it be your sole focus. Don't let it be your main motivation. But go out there and make all you can and do well and reduce debt, have a savings, give away money. I want you to do those things. To go back now and answer your question, it wasn't instantly that I came to that realization. I was very poor when I was a kid. We didn't have anything. I mean, we lived in a $6,500 house that we lost in bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
And we moved in with our cousin, and then we lived in a $60 a month rental house. So I know about being broke. I know about not having anything, and I know how to appreciate things once I do have them. If I ever sell anything used, Robert, you want to buy it because it'll be pristine. I take care of everything because I know how valuable and how hard I worked in order to accomplish that. But what dawned on me at some point is that the new things didn't give me the sensation that I thought they were going to give me. What I thought was once you reach certain pinnacles, you feel like I've accomplished it, I've arrived. And then when you get there, you go, well, this didn't really scratch the itch like I thought it was going to. This didn't really do the thing. Or you go buy a new truck and you're like all amped up, and then that newness wears off pretty quick. Or you go get that new bass boat, or you go get that vacation home. Now you've got a lot of responsibility, and you've got to maintain it and insure it and take care of it. There's a huge responsibility with being a good steward over these things. And so you think when you get all this money or get all these things, you're going to be at peace and happy and joyful. And see, happiness is a choice. It's not a trait. Happiness is a state of being that we choose to be into. We have to elect to be in a state of contentment in all phases of our life, yet aspirational, right? Keep going. Don't confuse contentment with complacency. I don't think we should ever be complacent, but we should always be in a posture of contentment. And I didn't learn these things until I slowed down long enough to pray through it, think through it, have counselors, get coaching, and then really let me understand the reason that I'm here. And the purpose today for us is helping ordinary men become extraordinary in all they do. I want to help people dodge some of the landmines that I've had to navigate over the course of my life. And once I get these things, I want to learn how to be the good steward over it and not let it control me. My good friend, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, wrote a book called Thou Shalt Prosper. And the book is amazing, and it teaches us in there that we are deserving of a wage, right, that's commensurate with the value that you give. And so it's a good thing, but we have to keep it in check. Money's a tool. And see, what we allow it to do is dictate to us our level of happiness, and it's wrong because we choose. I even said, you asked me how it's going today, and I said, today it's a beautiful day in Nashville. Well, actually, it's raining and overcast, but I choose for it to be beautiful today. When I was a kid, I used to say that's liquid sunshine, right? It's our choice. It's the lens by which we look through life. And what I discovered in the automobile accident is the brevity of life. 5 minutes earlier, I was literally in a posture of prayer before the Lord, asking him to bless our church and bless my family. And 5 minutes later, I was in the backseat of a patrol car, and my life just changed forever. See, it can happen in a nanosecond. And that's the reason that we're to enjoy this conversation right now with Robert and with Kay. We're to enjoy this moment, because I don't know in 5 minutes what it's going to bring. And I don't want to leave in a spot of not having accomplished all that God had me to at this moment.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's great that you had a support system, you got help, you had your wife, because that would be so hard to get out of bed in the morning and think like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my life now? Some people would just be like, let's just put the covers over our head and pretend like it didn't happen.
Well, see, here's the thing. That's the reason I encourage people. It's too late to build a support team when you need it. And we have to be proactive in building the support team. That's the why we do Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. It's a brotherhood. We have people that are constantly being your trusted advisor. They're people that are surrounding you, checking on you, praying for you, encouraging you, calling you out on a weekly and daily basis, year after year. And when you do need them, they're there. If you have a terrible, horrific accident, or you have a relationship meltdown or a financial disaster, and you haven't built that team, you are then subjecting yourself to isolation. And we all know that isolation is the enemy of excellence. If we want to be at our top of our game, we have to be in community. God designed us to be in community and be around other people where you can loan me your courage and wisdom and strength when I don't have any. And so that's the reason that, yes, we do need people around us.
So did you have some men in your life that were able to have those difficult, hard conversations with you?
Fortunately, I did. I had people at my church that I had lifelong relationships with. It's funny because at that point I got involved in a mastermind group called the Eagles, and there were 10 of us that met here in Nashville. But it was God's timing even in that. He knew that I needed these people to walk through this very difficult season with me. But prior to that, I did have men at my church. I was very involved in our church, that I did have support. And I've got a phenomenal wife, as we've already talked about, and she came to my aid and support. It was a very dark time in my life, very, very difficult 5-year period walking through. Why did this happen? And we ask God that all the time. Why did this happen? Like, I just left a good thing. Like I was just talking to you, Lord, 5 minutes ago. How did you allow this to happen? See, God allows things to happen. It doesn't mean he caused it, but he allows things to happen in our life. And it's what refines us. See, we never learn through success. We only learn through failure. And we only learn in the valley. We never learn on the peaks. And so it was a trying time in my life. It was difficult, but there were lessons I needed to learn. I needed to really figure out what was important in life, because you don't want to get to the end of your life and go, I've got regrets, I wasted it, right? That would be terrible, to lay on your deathbed and go, I could have done so much more, but I didn't. And that's the reason I'm such a proponent now for leaving it all on the field. Squeeze every drop out, do everything you can, make every moment intentional, live your life proactive, not reactive, to maximize this awesome thing that we get to do every day, and that's living a great life.
Yeah, so as you talk about the regrets, there's that book by Bronnie Brayer, who's a palliative care nurse, who wrote the book about the top 5 regrets. And all those 5 regrets have nothing to do with your accomplishments in your business or career. It's all about relationships. How do you take care of yourself, and how do you take care of your family and your friends? And so it sounds like you were very intentional about relationships even before the accident. So is that something you've always been like? Yeah,
I'm very relational. My dad was a terrible business person, but everybody loved my dad. You would have loved my dad, Robert, if you could have met my dad. When he came in a room, the room lit up. Everybody wanted to be around him. He didn't care about making money. He wanted to hunt and fish and be with his family. That's all he wanted to do. That's the reason we didn't have anything. But everybody loved my dad. We used to fish bass tournaments, and I'd show up early to the meeting, and they'd always go, "Where's your dad?" And I was like, "What about me? Like, I'm here." And they were like, "Oh man, your dad." And they would holler at him, tease with him. He loved life. And so I learned through my dad how valuable relationships are. And that's why today my number one core value is relationships matter most. And without that component, everything else feels a bit hollow. And so I just think that we need to focus, regardless if you're selling a widget or you're providing a service, the person has to matter most in every situation that we deal with.
Yeah, that's good. So it sounds like you kind of grew up with that mentality, but speak to some of the entrepreneurs. What would you say to some of the entrepreneurs that are just, going at it by themselves? Because I agree with you, relationships do matter most. And even just like when I lost my wife, it was those relationships that helped pull me through.
Sure.
And, and so, but sometimes in life and business, you get so busy and get caught up with what you're doing, you kind of lose focus on that. So what would you say to
I would say, first of all, you have to prioritize what's important. And I think you have to do that very intentional. And you used a good choice of words. You said they got caught up in the entrepreneurial journey. What they got caught up in is success. That's what they got caught up in. And now they've probably leveraged more than they should. They've got too many new cars, got too big a house, they've got kids in private school, they're saving for education, they're paying off student loans, and they get caught in this trap to where they have to, at a great expense relationally, because I came home with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers when I was about 38 years old, because I was so on this quest to accomplish more and to get more stores and to make more money. If I just make another 100,000, then I'll be good. If I just get a vacation house on the beach, then I'll be good. If I just get a new Mercedes, then I'll be good. If I just get a house that's bigger, then I'll be good. And they were all hollow after I achieved those things. They were nice, don't hear me wrong, we've already talked about that, but my focus was there. So I hear people every day say, and I'm going to say some things that's going to be a little pushback from some of your audience, but people every day when I ask what's important, they say my family. And I'm like, well, how much time this week did you spend with your family? Well, I'm busy. Well, see, we do what's important. We can say whatever we want to say, but our actions really demonstrate what's important. And when I can look at your checkbook and I can look at your calendar and tell what's important. And so I would just suggest that you build guardrails, build some boundaries, and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm listening to this old guy, and whether you believe me or not, say I'm going to try it. Build some guardrails and some priorities and prioritize what's important and say I'm going to work from 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, and I'm going to see if I can make it on that. Or even I developed a strategy that I was going to work those hours, and whatever came of that, I was going to build my life around. The other way, it always sucks up your time, and you'll always can work more. Here's what's so sad, Robert and Kay, is dads that come home and little Billy wants to pitch baseball. He's been waiting on you to get home all day, and then you say, hey, I got one more email, I got one more proposal, and then I'll come outside. Well, by then it's dark. Little Billy's got to take a bath, get ready for bed, and go to school tomorrow, and you miss that opportunity. So you only get one go-through with the kids. I can make more money. I can start more companies, but I got one shot at those kids. I don't get a do-over. You can't undo it. Now, people that are hearing me that have messed up, we can start from today. You can't recover, but you can start from today. And so I would just say live intentionally, live very proactive. I created a document called What Do I Want? It's the most downloaded document that we have. And it very intentionally walks you through the things that are important to you. Most people, and I won't put either of you on the spot, but I could ask you some very direct questions related to what you want in life, and most people don't know. Most people go, I want bigger, better, shinier, faster, just give me more, but they can't specifically say the things that they want personally, professionally, relationally, spiritually, financially, exact specifics. They can't do that. And so now we never know when we've won. We never know when we've accomplished it. And we keep moving the bar. Oh, if I just get this, then I'll be good. Well, by then, little Billy that we were talking about a while ago is in college, and you're going to end up a rich old guy with no relationships. Little Billy is not going to have time to fool with you. Now you've got time. And so I just see that disaster playing out all the time with people, and the relationships matter most. We say that audibly, but our actions don't reflect it. And I would just say, hey, I'm going to prove it to you by my actions. Listen, I coach men all the time. No disrespect to women, Kay, but I coach men. And so the thing is like your wife has heard this song and dance a million times, and you need to prove to her through your actions. And so Yeah, just be very deliberate, be very specific. If you want to go to viewfromthetop.com, you can download that worksheet. What do I want? And work through it. Sure.
Cool. We'll make sure we have the link in the show notes for sure. And that reminds me, like you said earlier, you can't go back in time and retroactively, fix that, but you can moving forward from this moment on. And
right.
It kind of reminds me of one of my favorite coaches is Jimmy Johnson of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
And several years ago he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and in his 10-minute acceptance speech, I mean, this really hit me. Twice in his 10-minute acceptance speech, he said, one of my biggest regrets was not spending the time with my sons, who were football players, right, growing up in high school. And he never hardly ever attended a game. And here he is as, now Hall of Fame football coach. Yeah. And biggest regrets, and he says, obviously they repaired the relationship. The sons were in the audience there. But still, he said, to your point, it's time I don't get back. It's just time I don't get back. And he said it twice in his speech, and so obviously that made an impact.
It was really a burden on his heart, and he can't undo it. That's the thing. He can't go back now and remanufacture that. But I want to give hope to the people that are listening that have messed up, right? Yeah. And that is be very intentional from today forward.
Yeah.
Go and really, what I would even recommend? This is going to sound a little sappy. I would recommend sitting your family down and apologizing. Mm-hmm. I would set them down and say, listen, Dad's messed up. I've made some horrible mistakes. I've chosen success over significance. I've chosen making more resources over my family. And from today, I'm not going to do that anymore. And what we're going to do is together as a family, we're going to decide what's important to us. And we're going to build those boundaries and those guardrails around our time and around the things that are vital. Because I don't want to lay there on my deathbed and go, I wished I had spent more time with my kids. I wished I had done this. Right. And so, yeah, you can start from today. Don't beat yourself up because you can't undo it.
Right.
And so let it go, let it pass, and start fresh and anew from today.
That's good.
That's so good. Powerful.
Yeah, that's good. So as we wrap up here, what is some practical things you do? What are the guardrails that you put in place around your business so you can still succeed in your business, but yet prioritize, things that matter most?
Yeah, I'm in a little different space, than a lot of your audience is going to be in regards to age. I'm kind of in that fourth quarter, and so my schedule is a little bit more fluid today. I've built a team, and they have the responsibility of the administration and the operations and the finances. Our team handles those things. And quite honestly, I spend the majority of my time doing interviews and speaking and building relationships with people is what I enjoy doing. And so just sharing, hopefully, a little bit of wisdom. Hopefully there's been a nugget in this that you can take. But I would just encourage people to do some of the things I've done in regards to accountability. Every week for 30 years, I've gone to 3 other guys, and we sit down and ask each other the hard questions. The questions about the things we think about, the things that we look at, the places we go, the conversations that we have. Would my wife be displeased with anything that I've done throughout the week? What am I watching on TV when she's not there? Where am I going on social media when nobody's looking? What are those things that I'm doing? Am I providing a great retirement for my wife and for my family? Am I thinking about legacy? All these difficult questions that we don't really think about. Then what happens is when we don't have that, we get ourselves in trouble. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to say a couple of things just to the men while we're talking. 87% of the men are struggling with pornography. And if you don't have filters on your computer, you don't have somebody looking at your phone, you don't have your wife asking you difficult questions, an accountability partner asking you questions, what's going to happen is you're going to get caught, and then you're going to spend the rest of your marriage trying to rebuild her self-esteem because she feels like she's not enough. Yeah. And then your children are not going to believe you because when you tell them don't cheat on your spelling test, but I'm cheating on your mom, you don't have a lot of validity in what it is that you're teaching your children. So we've got to take a self-evaluation personally. We've got to look internal first, get people around us, because the blind spots is what catch us, and then we spend the remainder of our life trying to work out of a hole rather than being prosperous, successful, and significant.
That's good. That's good, Big A. Thanks you. Yes. That's a great way to really wrap it up. And so you got viewfromthetop.com, of course, but how else can people follow you or get a hold of you? Or
That's the easiest way, Robert. Thank you for asking. If there's anyone that would like to talk to us about some of the other things that we teach, we have a great mastermind called Iron Sharpens Iron. You can go to View from the Top, fill out an application. There's no commitment by filling out the application, but you get in front of me for 40 minutes. We have an open dialogue and discussion. If you're interested in learning more, I would love to talk to you. We've got men from all over the world. We're in 5 different countries now, participating in a virtual mastermind that has been life transforming for hundreds, if not thousands, of men now for the past decade. So I'd love that opportunity to talk to any of your listeners.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
Yes, thanks you so
again,
much
Aaron,
for
sharing
being
your story. Yeah.
so open and raw and sharing your story. Because sometimes people, we have challenges in our life and we don't want to share them. We just want to hide them, pretend like they never happened. Yeah. So thank you for being so honest and using your challenges to reach other people to tell them that they can move forward as well.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Y'all really made me feel welcome today. So thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. So as you're listening, obviously, since you're still listening, please share this with another entrepreneur that needs to hear this, because I think we all need to, regardless of what phase of life we're in. I think we always need some, at least at the very least, these reminders of what's most important. So please share this, leave a review, and we'll talk to you next week. All right? God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.